Hello, my name is Ralph today, and I'm a recovering alcoholic. I'm here to read the Daily Reflections book for September 26, 2025. It's called Our Children. The alcoholic may find it hard to reestablish friendly relations with his children. In time, they will see that he is a new man, and in their own way, they will let him know it. From that point on, progress will be rapid. Marvelous results often follow such a reunion. That's from Alcoholics Anonymous, page 134. While on the road to recovery, I received a gift that could not be purchased. It was a card from my son in college saying, "Dad, you can't imagine how glad I am that everything is okay. Happy birthday, I love you." My son had told me that he loved me before. It had been during the previous Christmas holidays when he had said to me while crying, "Dad, I love you. Can't you see what you're doing to yourself?" I couldn't. Choked with emotion, I had cried, but this time, when I received my son's card, my tears were tears of joy, not desperation. Period. The end of the reading. I've read this again several times today, and what's it say here? Our children. It's hard to reestablish relationships with them. No kidding. In time, they will see that you're a new person. In their own way, they'll let you know it. From that point on, progress will be rapid. Marvelous results often follow such a reunion. Now that sounds like a happy one there. This text here, while on the road to recovery, and this guy gets a letter or a card from his son saying how happy he is that everything is going well, and let's call him the old drunk, remembers the last time he heard his kid telling him he loved him was out of a lot of concern from the child's point of view, wondering, what is my father doing to himself? So oh man, it's just so sad when that happens, because it happens a lot. Hopefully y'all get a happy ending out of all this, that because some time went by here. While on the road to recovery, I received a gift I couldn't purchase. He got a new card from his kid in college, so that starts in the fall. It might be coming up to the holidays again. Let's call it October. And it had been just a year later, not even a full year, last December, that his kid was crying out of concern, telling his old man how much he loved him, and asking, "Can't you see what you're doing to yourself?" With the drinking, I imagine. It didn't say that, I don't think. Just while on the road to recovery. It could be gambling, it could be sex, it could be porn, it could be marijuana, cocaine. Who knows? Humans get addicted to all sorts of things. So it's not just alcoholism. However, we're going to try and just deal with alcohol mainly here. Yeah, here's a thought that I never finished, just out of nowhere. In one of my readings from several weeks ago, I tried to say, I made mention of one of the few things that you do entering into treatment. And before that typically happened, as far as I know, the facility I went to was a Veterans Affairs or Administration hospital, inpatient. And somewhere in the preemptive stuff, there was a assessment done, like a drug/alcohol assessment form done. Actually, I think I had already been admitted, and then this was one of the first things, because they want to know your name and your address, and they already had that. Then they wanted to know, after you're admitted, why are you here? Why do you think you're here? That kind of thing. And the questions, the thing that just popped in here is that my drug of choice was alcohol, even though I had taken lots of other drugs. But my drug of choice was alcohol, okay? And I don't think I ever finished that thought back when I first brought that off. I went off on a tangent like I frequently do. So anyhow, here, this thing with the children, happy ending for this particular one, because choked with emotion, I had cried. That was when the kid was begging, basically, can't you see what you're doing to yourself? And then this guy, somewhere around a year ago, is recollecting he had cried. But this time, when he got this card from his son, my tears were tears of joy, not desperation. Here, desperation, there's that word. I can talk about desperation a little tiny bit, because I got all tangled up. I couldn't remember the word altruistic or altruism in just a few days ago reading about the willingness that suddenly seems to be present in people. I'll just put it that way. And I hadn't really tried to figure out, like, where does that come from? Willingness. Why would I be willing to do anything? And a lot of times it's because I think I'm going to get something pleasurable out of it in the end. So I'll endure and invest my time wisely into this endeavor for a bit, because I know the payoff at the end is going to be good, pleasurable, rewarding in some way. I think that's kind of clear. Now, whatever the reading was saying that day, let me see if I could quickly find it, which that's going to be a stretch. If you've been watching these videos, you know I don't seem to do much quickly. Here's something I do not do well, is try and talk, hold a thought, talk about that, and read. I do not believe it's even possible. You can't even get 50% success out of either exercise, I think. Here it is. September 18th, loved Back to Recovery. This is, you might say, when you discover that you have a higher power, and maybe you had never even comprehended that concept before, and then you realize, well, anyhow, that's a whole bunch of trust stuff, trust and faith. So those are some pretty heavyweight qualities. Love Back to Recovery. Our whole treasured philosophy of self-sufficiency had to be cast aside. There's another term in the big book that mentions when an alcoholic is thinking that they could return to drinking like a responsible adult. I don't know exactly what the term is there, but the ending part of that is, this illusion must be smashed. Exclamation point even, maybe. And what that's saying to me is what I have been personally experiencing with this disease, or whatever you choose to call it, of alcoholism, is that there's society, there's the populace, the population, And there's many different colors, there's many different heights, there's many different weights, there's many different IQs amongst all these people. They're all human though, okay? So that we can kind of zoom in on some stuff, but if you're zoomed in on that and you got a group of humans, some of those humans are going to have something that I'm choosing to call alcoholism. And some of them are not. And now when you give these, let's call them subjects, alcohol, they're going to react differently. And some of them are going to react markedly differently. And you'll see that there's a craving and an obsession and a compulsion to keep consuming the alcohol. Whereas the other group that isn't alcoholic or doesn't suffer from alcoholism or doesn't test positive for alcoholism or whatever, they somehow understand this is making me sick and they stop consuming it and they're fine. I'm not that way. I'm an alcoholic. I get a taste of that stuff and it doesn't matter what it tastes like. It's what starts happening to me that somehow that sets up a chain reaction of craving, and it's not pretty. Logic has left the building. It's horrible, man. So where are we at? 11 minutes. Our children see us doing this kind of thing, and kids are bright. They're very bright. They're very. I mean, they may not be able to articulate what they're experiencing and the conclusions that they're drawing, but make no mistake, they know pain and they know joy, and you know, maybe it isn't any more complex than that, but this isn't my point. My point is that the alcoholic is in a mess, in a trap, in dire straits, whereas maybe the non-alcoholic isn't either there yet. And here's a thought, again, that forget what the original one is, almost, is that if you take somebody that maybe, if there was this blood test that I asked about before, which I don't think there is yet even, you just take a blood test and you test positive for alcoholism, or you test negative for alcoholism. And it's like that cut and dried and that simple. My question just now that popped in here again is, can you be a so-called problem drinker? You know, like maybe, well, you consume alcohol at some rate, at some amount over time, your lifetime. Can that develop into alcoholism of the type that it's a guy or a woman that just drinks every day until they black out? That isn't the clinical textbook definition of alcoholism, though. That's where I tripped myself up just a second ago, because somebody that says they're a problem drinker or something like this, in the absence of this blood test, during like an alcohol assessment thing, upon entry into a treatment facility to figure out the treatment modality that would best suit this patient's needs, it's like I drink on my birthday. That's the only time I ever drink. What do you do with that? Well, maybe that's not a problem. There's a bunch of other questions that kind of lead up to that. It's like, do you look forward to your birthday? And that's pretty innocuous and vague. Do you look forward to your birthday because you're going to get to drink alcohol? That might be a more pointed to the, more germane to the situation of a guy or a woman sitting in a treatment facility entrancing room or something. And the person might say yes. And okay, why? You know, do you look forward to drinking alcohol on your birthday? And then it's like, what kind of alcohol do you drink? Is it hard liquor? Is it champagne? Is it whatever? And then the quantity. And then it's like the frequency's pretty well set. It's on my birthday. But then little things, little cracks in the facade might start to appear. I also drink on my wife's birthday because she's like I am. She only drinks on her birthday. Oh, so now you drink twice a year and you look forward to it, and you always drink Jack Daniels and Coca-Cola, say. And how many do you have? Oh, until we're just blotto, until we're just hammered drunk in puddles on the ground and urine and vomit. But it's only once a year, so I'm not alcoholic, so get off me or whatever. That still is, that, I don't know, I'm not a doctor. That's like, to my understanding, that could be both. You are an alcoholic and you're not. My question, I guess, is in that kind of situation, can that develop into alcoholism in the absence of this blood test? That it's like somebody that wouldn't think that they're an alcoholic because it doesn't show up anywhere in their family. I think there's some stats out there that here's the blood test or the genealogy test or something that you could take, or in the past, because it's the same thing as, like, well, I'm going to call it the same thing. Like with insanity, if your mother or your grandmother or your father or your grandfather, here, these like four people, your father, grandfather, your mother, grandmother, alcoholism and insanity, say. If one of them generations previous to you had this documented, maybe somehow, I'm not a doctor again. The statistics are more likely that you might be prone to suffering from this if all the other stars in the universe align. Because there's environmental triggers, there's all kind. It's not just your genes. I want to make that very clear because I've been studying a bunch of this stuff just for my own good. Your environment and what you're exposed to, so your experiences, and that's a whole chain of stuff too. How you're thinking about what you're receiving, all the information that we gather up during the day from our eyes, from our ears, touching, from our nose, whatnot, our skin. Every piece of sense data that's coming in gets processed. We miss a lot of bytes of information, and we don't even catalog it, save it, or anything. It's there in the short term, maybe for a little bit, short-term memory, and then it's cast aside because it just isn't worthy. It didn't trip something. Maybe there's a link that if in a previous generation one of your ancestors were insane or a drunk, you might be more likely to capture those little pieces of information that might be more likely to get you headed into a alcoholic kind of problem down the road, maybe. And so by that way it might be a gene thing, and then the environment and your emotions creating this reality for yourself. That's just a thought of mine that from things that I read and experience. So if you didn't think that way, that may not happen, would be the bottom line there, is that this that's me pointing at my head, making the crazy motion, and pointing at my chest, meaning I am crazy on some of these things, which, hey, that's okay to me because I don't drink anymore about it. It's one of these things, though, some senseless, baseless, illogical, irrational obsession that we can't seem to get an answer to. Boy, if you don't get some kind of help for that, a human like myself tends to think alcohol would dim this down a bit to where I could handle it. And I know what happens to me. I'm an alcoholic. I drink alcohol. It's that blotto into the pool of human waste thing at the end of the night, and then come to and wonder what happened, and then the crazy obsession what I call the return to sanity part that gets lost in step 2. Let me read this for us. We've got the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 traditions. The first step, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Here, step 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. I think part of the sanity that the alcoholic loses, that gets restored at some point, if they work on it and stay sober and away from alcohol, is this thing where after or in the midst of a bender and maybe a lot of legal complications, physical health complications, and the alcoholic maybe gets into this alcoholic's paradox where I feel like if I don't get a drink, I'm going to die. And then it's like, if I have a drink, I am going to die because I'll keep drinking and die. This insanity then to get another drink, knowing all this weight is behind it, that's insane. No rational person dealing with logic and reason would probably get these kind of circumstances stacked up and then reach for the alcohol and start drinking it. So that insanity, that part of it can be restored. So anyhow, that's a good thought, huh? And then all these other things will follow suit, really. I believe that also, is that people will understand that you're trying to get your